Y'all planning for this?
Welcome back, TPR Nation. This is Jamie Shalansky in an episode of Worlds to Conquer, and I am fired up to talk to you. We just did something incredible, sensational with our team, and I had to share it with the entire nation. Now, you know at Shalansky and Associates, RRIA, up in Anchorage, Alaska, that my team members work and live across the United States. We got about 16 people on the team altogether, and that's divided up into 3 pods: financial advisors, relationship managers, and operations personnel. But when we do our biggest surges, which are in the spring and the fall, we all come together regardless of where you're at in the US. And we all come together in Anchorage, Alaska, and we do really powerful surge periods together. And the reason that we do this is because we have collective synergy and we have the passion and energy to work with one another during that period so that we become our absolute best selves. So I want to talk to you today about how freaking easy it is to not practice and not think you have to prepare and wind up with the result of it being amateur hour for you, your prospects, your clients, and your team. And that's not what we're striving here for at the Perfect RA. We are on a pursuit for perfection. So I'm going to give you the power and the tools today that I'm going to radicalize the way you think about practicing. But before I share with you that information, I just got to give a massive shout out. I just got off the phone. I had a conference with a lead relationship manager, and it was incredible. It was really profound and humbling. She said, "Hey, listen, I love everything the Perfect RA does. You guys give out so much great content. I love what the guys do. I love what Amber does with Follow Up Fridays, but I just love your Worlds to Conquer episodes because I feel like you're speaking to me. I feel like you're telling me the why we do these things and then also the how we can go and get them done." And for her and her enterprise office, this was really powerful information. So big time shout out to Amber, who is our podcast curator. You hear her voice every Friday when she does the Follow Up Fridays. And she bullied me into doing this. And I'm delighted to know that it is impacting at least one life out there. Because sometimes, when you're working with people live and you're in an audience, you're getting the gauge, you're getting the feel. You can really pick up on those biorhythms to know if you're making an impact. But when it's just you and your microphone, you're just hoping that when you send this out, it really is making some kind of impact in somebody's life. So that's a great reminder that if this podcast, if something we do at the Perfect RA, or you're listening to other people and they're giving you great, solid information, give them some type of feedback. Give them a 5-star. Give them a shout out on social media. If you're not a public person, then email lifestyle@theperfectRA and let us know what you like and what you dislike, because we are doing this for your benefit. This is us sharing our information as financial advisors out there in the trenches, really meeting with clients, really directing an entire team of personnel to try to deliver massive value, spend more time with our families outside of the office, and be highly profitable in the process. So if you find an episode that's speaking to you, let us know. And if you find an episode that you want more content on or more information on, then you got to take 2 seconds and get on your desktop, because I know your email's not on your smartphone because we talked a lot about that, and just send us a shout out. Please, lifestyle@theperfectra.com. Let us know how you're doing. You are our audience. You are the ones that we are trying to make an impact to. And I know that I'm guilty of this whenever I talk to my small business owners. One of the biggest things that impacts their public relations is how many reviews they get on Google. And so they'll get 5 stars and they love those 5 stars, but it is the 1 star. It's the negative reviews that circulate and that stay in their minds. And I often have to remind those business owners that just because some keyboard warrior got online and spilled out their haterade about everything they disliked about your business, you probably have 10 or 20 people that are loving what you're doing, but they just don't get on and they just don't leave reviews. They don't do shout outs. They don't tag you. They don't give you any feedback. So sometimes you just have to go out and ask your audience. So this is me, Jamie Shalansky, asking my audience, how do you guys like this information? Is this what you want? Tell me what you want more of. And me and the guys, when we're powwowing, we'll sit around and we'll sculpt it all out, because we want to deliver massive value to you as a financial advisor, because that is the only way. This is the only way we really change the world. If we can provide provide you with the type of content that allows you to deliver massive value to your clients and revolutionize the way that your team operates, my God, the amount of heartbeats, the amount of actual clients, financial planning clients' lives that we can transform. Now that's something worth getting excited about every single day. Okay, so let's jump into it. We're going to talk about why perfect practice makes perfect. In 2019, we were so bored with doing in-person classes. We had just been doing the redundancy wheel. We've been putting on seminars since the early 80s. Micah, Shalansky, my brother and I, we would work the registration tables at the public school system to get people checked in for my dad's financial successful retirement seminars and strategic money management seminars. We did the Harry Dent seminars. We've done every seminar, dinner, luncheons, learn and lunch, any type of seminars. And we continue that with federal employees. And we did it so successfully that, of course, after a lot of time, we got kind of, it's a lot of energy to put out there. I wish everyone would jump on the internet and we could do this online instead. All right, fast forward, what happens? A giant pandemic globally sweeps across the world in 2020. And now, surprisingly, every client who couldn't figure out how to get online now knows how to get online. And everyone is being Zoomed to death. There's webinars aplenty out there. And that was a phenomenal thing. It really pushed us globally to get more content online, more learning management systems up and running, and more ways to connect with people virtually. And I'm a huge fan of that. The amount of content that has been produced the last 2 to 3 years just rocks. I mean, it is insane. I don't even know how many classes I can keep up with to just keep learning from all of these different masters in their different expertise about how they deliver massive value to whatever industry that they're in. And I love that. But around 2022, we started saying to ourselves, gosh, it'd be really great to get back in person with people. We had those taken away from us, and now we really miss connecting with our audience and delivering massive value and teaching these programs. So we fired up an in-person event here in 2023, and we went out to our audience, and we're going to put together a full day, 8-hour class on federal benefits. That's what we do. That's our niche. That's who we work with. And so our financial advisors, and we have a handful, literally 5 financial advisors in our office, but only 2 of them normally speak at these events, and that's Floyd Shalansky and Micah Shalansky. So we're bringing up the young protege, and we're saying, great, we want to introduce you and get you ready to be able to present at these in-person events. Now, when we said this, we told him a year ago that we wanted him to start getting prepared to teach the entire program. And so when do you think he actually started getting prepared for the event? You're right. When it was scheduled, and it was about 45, 60 days in advance. That's when they started. He should have started 12 months ago and been a master at his craft. But when we don't have a deadline, that Parkinson's law really creeps in. The work takes up the amount of time that you allot for it. And so a deadline makes us get prepared. If a deadline is 12 months out in advance, guess when we're going to start preparing for it? In 10 months. We don't even need to think about that deadline. And that does us sometimes a disservice. So one pro tip that you could do, you need to set mini deadlines. If you're going to do in-person classes in 6 months, you need to start setting deadlines for yourself 6 months in advance. What are you going to do to prepare for these things? All right, so fast forward, he gets back on track. Do we say, hey, we're going to give you the entire seminar to present? No, we say we're going to give you a portion of the seminar to present. It is an 8-hour long program. It's divided into 10 different sections. Here are the 2 sections that you need to master. But oh, by the way, you need to make sure that you're preparing to learn the entire seminar as well. So your focus should be on these 2 sections, and you should have a mastery over those, but you need to know the entire seminar content. Why? What if the main presenters cannot present? What if the show must go on and you are the understudy and the main actor is out for whatever reason? These are real things. And if you've ever put on live events, you know that happens. It's going to come up. And we've had everything that you could possibly think of. We've had audience members object and cause scenes. We've had catering hotels not know that we were scheduled because they had to change in personnel and didn't have rooms ready. We have had presenters get stuck on highways because the highway shut down because of some traffic imposition. And we have had presenters show up game day and have no voice. They were unable to speak. So what is that backup plan? What are you going to do as an understudy to make sure that you are 100% ready? It's really important, not just because it might happen, but because statistically the probability of something going wrong is very, very high. In fact, one of the books that I love to read, and I kind of read this right before I go into surge because it just kind of gets me fired up about the things about practicing for surge before we go into surge, is Sustain Your Game. And it's all about sports coaching, and it's about endurance, and it's about how you constantly cannot think that you're going to have the ideal environment. So there I am, and I'm listening to Sustain Your Game ahead of time, and he's talking about all the greatest basketball players out there and how they would do things during practice that would really distract them from the game. So maybe they wore a different pair of shoes. Maybe their socks kept sliding down. Maybe the ball didn't have enough air in it. Maybe they had an entire gymnasium filled of teenagers hooting and hollering and carrying on and making all sorts of obnoxious sounds. They did all of these things to distort what that perfect environment would be like during game day, because guess what they knew? Guess what they knew? They knew that on game day, nothing would be perfect. Something outside of their control would end up happening, and they wouldn't be able to control that matter, but what they can control is how they responded to it. And so they would practice constantly in imperfect conditions so that on game day, when things are going better than they should have been in practice, that you have a heightened ability to perform. And I often think about this. I grew up playing hockey, and whenever you'd have practices, you'd wait for the lake to freeze over, and it wasn't a Zamboni lake. It was literally, you had to show up 35 minutes in advance, bring your own shovel, and you'd be pushing snow. And if you've ever ice skated on a lake, you know that the thaw and the freeze leads to a lot of bumps, and it's a very difficult platform to skate across. But that was where practice was held. And I can't tell you how many times I would complain to my father that I didn't need to go to practice, that I would be ready for game day, that I was a good defense player. And how many times he would tell me, and whether or not he had this authority or not, I didn't know, but he'd tell me that if I didn't show up at practice, I was benched for the game, and that I wouldn't be allowed to play, because if I wasn't willing to put in the hours and do the reps during practice, I wasn't allowed to skate when the conditions were perfect. And so I put in the hours in imperfect conditions, and I guarantee I was mouthy about it or had a bad attitude. But as an adult, it gave me a good perspective that it's rarely ever perfect conditions, and that you are always going to have to be struggling through something. So as we got ready for the seminar, even though we were in surge, I went to my entire team and I said, hey, great, everyone, since everyone is here from across the United States, on Wednesday, let's everyone stay after work. I'm going to order a bunch of pizzas and beer. We'll all sit back, and I would love for this particular person to present their portion of the seminar. Are you guys willing to do that? Does anyone have any objections? And luckily, I have the best team in the country. I have the best team in the country, because when I asked this of everyone, nobody complained, nobody moaned. They were all fatigued. They were all exhausted, but they all rallied and they said, absolutely, this is what the financial advisor needs from us. And we are 100% committed to doing that. So what I did, I left the financial advisor out of the meeting. I took the entire team and I said, great, here's the rules of engagement. I want you guys to go through the slides. I want you to see the portion that he's going to be presenting, so you're familiar with the context ahead of time. And then I want you to think over the next couple of days, what kind of questions do you have related around this topic? And then I want you to marinate on those questions. All right, now here's the rules of engagement though. When this person is presenting, there will absolutely be no snickering. There will be no heckling. There will be no jiding. There will be no sabotage. If you have a question, you raise your hand, you ask a question. That's what you would do in a normal class, as if he was another coach that we had here in the office and we were learning something from. But this is not to mock the financial advisor. This is not to criticize the financial advisor. This is to give them an opportunity to be in front of a live audience giving this presentation. And so the day of, what I asked the financial advisor to do was about 2 hours before the event went live. I said, great, you and the person that is supposed to be working this particular seminar, I want you guys to set it up. I want you to set it up, and I want you to act as if this is a live event. I want you to have everything pulled out, and I'm going to come in and check it. And I want you guys to do a dress rehearsal. And this was phenomenal, because just before, I gave them about 30 minutes to set up. And then I said, hey, are you guys ready for me? Is everything at its absolute best? And they were both so full of confidence. They were both like, yes, absolutely. We're ready for you. Let's do this. I said, great. Okay. So we had a mock registration table, and I went up there and I'm registering for the event. I'm filling out the form. I'm seeing what I need to put down. I'm making sure the pen works. And then I say, hey, by the way, I parked out front. Is that where I'm supposed to park? And the financial advisor's face said, well, I don't know. And that was a great indication. When you're hosting an event, people are going to ask you logistical questions. They're going to want to know the housekeeping stuff. And you can start your presentation by giving a list of housekeeping items, which completely sucks all the energy out of your opening. Or you can take care of those things while everyone is mingling and while everyone is getting comfortable. So I asked those questions. Where do I park? How do I go to the bathroom? By the way, my friend couldn't be at this event. Can I take one of the books and bring it with me? Now, is that a yes or a no? The books that we give out to seminar attendees, they cost $20 to print each. But there's no point in giving the book to somebody else because in my book, the reader's going to see the menu. They're not getting a list of ingredients and the recipe to make the course. So really, is there any value? And if there's no value in giving the book, I'm not going to lead with a no to a prospect. I'm going to lead with a yes and tell them why that person might have questions and how they can next get in front of our seminar, come to their own class, or schedule a one-on-one consultation. These are the things that happen. As we transitioned from the registration area and then we went into the presentation, I said, great, okay, you ready to give it? And he said, yeah, absolutely. And I said, all right, why isn't your computer hooked up to the projector? Oh, and he looked to the personnel, the relationship manager, and said, no, absolutely not. What if that relationship manager does not show up that day? What if they are late? What if they overslept? What if they're sick? What if all the what ifs end up happening? You have to have responsibility to know how to do your equipment. And that was a great learning tool for him because two things that the relationship manager and the financial advisor did not know was how to use the PowerPoint clicker to adjust the slides. A PowerPoint clicker has a transmitter and the clicker itself. And so changing out those batteries, figuring out how to connect it to your computer. We use a ton of Apple products. We hadn't done this seminar since 2019. So guess what Apple did? They changed all of the ports in the computers that we all had. And so the clicker had a USB and now we're all running on USB-C. These are things I don't want to find out at 8 in the morning in Alaska when I have absolutely no control over fixing them. So as the financial advisor took the stage and I said, okay, great, present to me. What's your opening? And his face went blank and said, oh my goodness, I didn't practice an opening. And I said, okay, well, Micah's going to transition to you. So when he transitions to you, how are you going to open up your audience? How are you going to get them really comfortable with you? Because they're going to have listened to somebody else for the last 3 hours. And now you've got to warm them up. Now they've got to get comfortable with you. And then when you conclude, when you're done with your section, how are you now transitioning that to the next presenter? How are you handing off that baton? What is your body language? What is your clothes? How are you going to bring that next presenter up? All of these questions that you don't really think about when you're practicing a presentation until you're in a mock scenario. And so in that time frame, what I had him also do is he had the 3M pad up there because we always bring a 3M pad. At Shalansky & Associates, our financial advisors are responsible for creating a lot of content, and I do a lot of content coaching. There's a certain way I want videos to look, and there's a certain manner of delivery in which I want that financial advisor to deliver. And so we have to look, how do people learn? Their audio, their visual, or their hands-on. All learners across the country have one dominant and the rest are subordinate to those. And so you've got to know, how does your audience respond to the content in which you are putting in front of them? And so I always have a 3M pad. When I have a 3M pad, I don't use a Mr. Sharpie. Why do I not use a Mr. Sharpie? Oftentimes I take the sticker note off of the 3M pad and I put it on a hotel wall. If I put it on a hotel wall and I'm using a Sharpie, guess what I just bought? Ridiculous wallpaper inside of the hotel. And so instead, I want Mr. Sketch markers, but not just any Mr. Sketch markers, because most of the time my audience is age 50 and older, and I can't have thin Mr. Sketch markers. I want fat Mr. Sketch markers. I want vibrant colors that they can see from the back of the room. So we will order Mr. Sketch markers, the fat ones, and we will go through, pull out the yellows, pull out the colors that you cannot see from the back, and we will throw them away. They're not even an option. They're in the trash can. I don't want them in the office because I don't want anyone defaulting to using them. We do all of these little things so that we can deliver massive value to our audience. So as he took the stage and I said, great, draw me out this example. He went and said, oh my goodness, we don't have any markers. And I said, fantastic. Now you know what you need. Add it to the list. And he said, yes, but it's already on our packing list. Okay, great. being on a list doesn't make the markers magically appear. We have to actually now go get them. So you as the presenter, yes, it was somebody else's responsibility to make sure they were in the box. They're not in the box. You still have to present. You need to do that double check to make sure you have all of the tools in your toolbox necessary game day to do the job at hand. Now, one mistake that I made with this particular financial advisor is when I watched him open, I wanted to critique and change it. And he was kind enough and respectful enough to push back on me and say, hey, listen, you're trying to change my opening, and I've been practicing on this one for months. Okay, that's my fault. I should not do that. If he's already committed something to muscle memory, I should not, as long as it's not a huge egregious mistake, I shouldn't change his opening. And because he did it respectfully, I said, you know what? I'm trying to give it critique. If this is what you practice, then run with what you practice. Don't listen to my critique, even though it's going to make you 10 times better. You need to run with what you have committed to memory instead. And so I had to check myself and also be responsive to his feedback of saying, hey, listen, you're respectfully trying to change this up. I think I'm going to mess it up if you do that. Okay, then when 4 o'clock wrapped up and everyone was done with their appointments, we closed the doors, we turned off the phones, and we all went back and did a simulation of the seminar. And before doing so, what I got my group together and said was I reminded them about the rules of the engagement. I said, listen, this is how today is going to go. He's going to get up here. He's going to give his absolute best presentation. This is the very first time he's giving it in front of an audience. And then I asked him a question. Who here went to public school? Who here was part of a group project? Who here had to one time in their life present in front of the entire class the findings of their group project? And you could see the faces. And I said, that's exactly what he's walking into today. The hardest presentation to ever give is to your peers, yet alone your peers plus your supervisors watching you perform. This is the hardest activity, and it doesn't change with age. It is the most difficult thing to present in front of your peers. It's a lot different when the audience is people you don't know, but when it's your friends, when it's your colleagues, when you know you're being judged and measured for the work that you're doing, it is very difficult. And therefore, there will be absolutely no heckling, no sabotaging, and no attempt to make him fail. This is for his betterment. And everyone was on board with that. Everyone was committed to that. Everyone was excited to hear what he has to say, because guess what? We give out really good information that applies to almost everyone in our office, even if they're not federal employees. Everyone wanted to hear about health insurance. Everyone wanted to know the different type of what the ACA was, how Medicare works, what they can contribute to an FSA. He had really great information to give, and our audience, even our team members, were excited to hear him. So when he came in and when we were doing the registration, he got to feel the pulse of what was real versus what was practiced, because until this point, he had been practicing primarily by himself or in the presence of 1 or 2 other people. But now here's 16, 17 people in a room, all here to watch you perform, and they're your peers amongst you. And so when he got up there, with real things started to happen. We allowed things to organically happen in his presentation, and we allowed team members to ask questions. And at first, because he didn't know ahead of time that anyone was going to interrupt him, that anyone was going to ask a question, he didn't have that information. He thought everyone was going to sit quietly and just listen to his presentation. But if you've given a live event, if you've spoken in front of a live audience, you know that never happens. That crowd control and getting the rhythm of the behaviors of your audience is paramount, because it is going to happen. So a few things that organically took place in this event is 2 people got a phone call. Phones go off. Phones weren't on silent. How are you going to respond to that? One person in the audience, which I thought was just beautiful, Floyd got a phone call and took the call. He stood up and took the call and started talking in the middle of a presentation as he made his way out. Has that ever happened to you when you perform in front of an audience? Yes, it does happen. And if you make a big deal, and if you try to single that person out and make them feel shame for having their phone go off, you are now the aggressor. You are not getting the sympathy of your audience that you should have. If a phone goes off during a presentation, you should lightheartedly lightheartedly make a joke about it, and then that will gain you sympathy and rapport with your audience. You can't allow it to put you on tilt. Now, the only thing, even though I told you we weren't going to sabotage, we weren't going to do these other things, the only thing that was planted ahead of time was that I asked one of our team members to sit next to the presenter's computer, and right towards the end, 3 slides towards the end before his close, she had to close the laptop down as if the computer had died and he no longer could see his own presentation. Now, what is the importance behind this? At every live event we ever do, we print down the slides. Why? Because computers die. Power goes out. There is corruption. There are things that just happen in the middle of your presentation. And if you're using that presentation, those slides as a crutch, and you don't know how to bring it to close without those materials, then you need to have it printed down in front of you so you don't completely lose your audience. So that was the only thing we planted. Otherwise, people ask questions. They asked really great questions. One of the lessons that he learned, and this is great if you've never given a live presentation before, and they teach you this in law school right before you become, when you start doing your litigation series, that you need to ensure you never ask a question you don't already know the answer to. And so getting the audience to participate, getting them to ask questions, that's important. But asking the audience questions, you better know the answers to those. Because if you don't, and if you say to somebody, for example, that's challenging you on part of your presentation, hey, why don't you come up in front of the audience and give us a whole example? You better be a master of control. You better know how that to make sure you're not taken to task. Because an educated person, a person that is better at crowd control than you are, will go up into the front of that room with no sense of shame or embarrassment, and they will take your presentation away from you, and your prospecting event just went up in flames. So do not ask a question you don't know the answer to. Do not challenge your audience members. You have to negotiate that dance really carefully to make sure you both don't end up falling on your face. Another great lesson that he wasn't naturally prepared for was side talk. People who are in your audience are going to know each other. There's going to be friends. In fact, Micah brought up, and this was a wonderful point for the financial advisor to take to heart, that when you go into a group of people that all are comfortable and know each other, maybe they're coworkers, maybe they're friends, maybe they're family, your job became twice as hard, because a friendly audience can get away from a presenter very, very quickly because they have inside jokes, they have banter, they know who's going to do what, and you are completely out of the loop on that one. So you have to work 2 times as hard to not lose that friendly audience. So how are you going to react? How are you going to negotiate that with the audience when they are friendly together? And then this I hope was the most important lesson of them all. If as a presenter, if as a financial advisor in a meeting, if you are speaking, if you are a guest and you don't know the answer to something super definitive, like if you are not 100% confident in your answer, do not answer the question. A beautiful part about being a financial advisor, we're not trauma surgeons. The ability for us to answer a question on the spot is seldom life and death scenarios. So we don't have to always have the answer immediately. We just have to have it in a reasonable amount of time. So when you're asked a question you don't know the answer to, don't answer it. Pull on your audience. And there's a way to do it without losing control and without looking like you don't know what you're talking about. So for example, if I was asked a question and my father was there and he was in the audience and somebody asked me a question and I wasn't 100% confident in my answer, you know what I would say? You know what? I don't know that answer to that question. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research to that. Floyd, do you have any experience working with clients that might have had a question similar to this before? And then that's fine. Listen to my inflection. My inflection is reminding you that I am human and that I know many things. I'm not going to know all the things. And that's okay because I didn't look like I lost my expertise. I didn't look like a person who didn't know what I was talking about. And I sure as hell didn't look like a person who was going to be wrong because they gave the wrong answer. One wrong answer can jeopardize your accountability and your credibility with your audience very, very quickly. Now, sometimes if you're a financial advisor in a meeting, you're going to give somebody the wrong information. It's going to be the wrong piece of advice. Maybe you didn't know the benefits. Maybe you didn't know the tax strategy. Maybe you didn't have a full picture. It does not matter if you were wrong. It matters what you do when you are wrong. And so when you are wrong, you pick up the phone, you don't send an email, and you say, hey, you know what? I am so sorry. I think I misinterpreted that, and that's 100% on me. I should have known better. I'm very sorry for giving you that advice. Let's make this right. You fall on that sword. You figure out how to make it better when you are wrong, because guess what? Some point in your career, you're going to be wrong. Now, when that presentation wrapped up and he did a phenomenal job delivering his content, did he get on tilt during that? Heck yeah, 100%. Were there moments he felt he lost the audience? Yes, definitely. But after it concluded with everyone still in the room, and this was part of the rules of engagement that I talked about with the team ahead of time, if you are not the man in the arena, then you do not get to give feedback, critiques, or suggestions. Now, what does this mean? If you're not willing to also get up in front of the entire team and deliver a presentation, and then stand there as you get feedback from your supervisors and your team members, then you keep your mouth shut during the end of it. Instead, you just absorb what was said and you give positive reinforcement, positive feedback. But if you're not the man in the arena, take a seat. And that was part of this exercise. And then as he went through this, what I did with our other financial advisors that watched him do this public display of presenting in front of his peers and then take feedback from all of us, from Floyd, Micah, and I, and that is a tough audience to hear things from. And as he heard that feedback, you know what he said? He said, great, how do I do it better next time? Could you give me an example? What should I do here? And then after that, in front of the entire team, we announced how incredible it was that this financial advisor superpower was to be able to hear feedback, hear criticism, and be accountable for it, say thank you, and then say, how do you make me better? Now, between when we wrap this presentation up, he's got about 30 days before it's game day. And guess what he's going to do? He's going to remember all of those things. In his mind, he is going to have a reincarnated scenario. And he is going to say, hey, if you wouldn't mind sliding your phone on silent, that would be really great so that everyone can hear me. Or, hey, could you please tell my secretary to hold on my phone calls, and make a joke of somebody's cell phone interrupting you during the presentation. He's going to think about all those ways he's going to get interrupted. He's going to stop and be asked questions, and he's going to know from muscle memory how he's going to respond to those things. And then one of the things we told him, present in public, present not in public to a prospect audience, but maybe around all of your kids, maybe around your spouse. Maybe you get your coworkers together and you give the same presentation online. You figure it out and you do it around a trusted source of people. So that muscle is just constantly being built, that when you show up and when it's game day, it will never, ever be perfect conditions. Something is always going to go wrong. And that's why, yes, Dad, perfect practice makes perfect. Put the time in, put the reps in. This is a craft. This is a profession. This is something we have to be so dedicated to when we are outside a surge, that when we are in surge and when we are in front of prospects, we are experts. We are excellent in our craft because we showed up and we did what other people were unwilling to do most of the time. Okay, I told you that if you listen to this entire podcast and you didn't get one thing out of it, then you're probably the amateur in your group. And that's not me being condescending. That's not me being arrogant. That is me telling you, don't drink your own Kool-Aid. Don't get so delusional thinking that you're absolutely perfect in everything that you do, that you don't need to put in the reps, you don't need to put in the practice time, and you don't need to be open to positive feedback. But be careful and selective who you take your feedback from. It has to be from people in the arena. Nobody from the cheap seats gets to call shots. And if you are a young financial advisor and you're looking for the ways that you level up and that you become excellent and an expert at your craft, you do what our financial advisor did. He said, thank you. May I have another? He listened to the criticism. He listened to the feedback. He took it with grace, he took it with candor, and he accepted it, and he asked for ways to improve. All right, you know that everything we do at the Perfect RIA, you got it. It's about action items. So what can you do? One, I'm going to recommend Sustain Your Game. I thought it was a great book. I listened to it pre-surge, kind of gets me juiced back up for everything that maybe we got lackadaisical about during off-surge times, so that we can ramp up and make sure we put in those reps, make sure we're doing the practice that needs to get done for game day. Action item number 2, are you presenting in public? What's your prospecting plan? How many events do you have scheduled? Are you going to get back and do them in person? Are they virtual? Are you getting on the camera? What does that look like? What's your prospect plan? I want to know. You want all of these new clients, but they're not just magically going to come from referrals. How are you actually going to get you and the information that you provide in front of prospects? Develop that plan. 3, what is your perfect practice scenario? How many times are you going to put in the reps? And this isn't just like, oh, yeah, I need to practice. I'm going to do it in my car. I'm going to do it in my head. I'm going to do it in the shower. No, that's not practice. That's just mentally going through things. Practice means you're putting on the suit, you're putting on the dress, the lights are on, the camera's on, you're actually in action mode. You're doing a dress rehearsal for a reason. You have to put in the reps for the gains. We had one person tell us, I can't believe you guys practice for surge. That's ridiculous. Isn't that like just client prepping? No, we go in and have a mock day, How are you going to walk up and greet the client? Where's the client sitting? Hey, can I get you a water? How much coffee? Where's this at? Where's that at? Oh, we went in the office. Oh, we're talking about long-term care insurance. You have to put your mom in a home. I'm so sorry. Where are my tissues? Am I going to hand you a Kleenex when you need it? Oh, you need to write something down. Here's a pen. The pen is taken off. I'm writing down on a piece of paper. Does the pen actually work? Or do I have to ask a client to transfer me all of their life savings, get up out of my seat and go out to my relationship managers and ask for a pen that works? Talk about a mood killer. What are those steps that you're putting in to make sure that it's not amateur hour when you are in front of your clients, you are in front of your prospects, and you are leading your team all the way up the mountaintop towards greatness? TPR Nation, this has been an episode of Worlds to Conquer. I'm Jamie Shalansky. Go find people who share your values and change the world.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife. The Perfect RIA.